Hello, hello, everybody. It is Monday. Tonight I will be chatting with Sarah Isadoric, and I'm so excited to have this conversation. Honestly, I am fired up for it. Hi, Mel, how are you? Guys, this is a really, really, really important topic, and I know a lot of people are probably wondering, what the hell do two white looking girls have to say about cross culture unity? Well, we have a lot to say, to be quite honest with you, and it's a topic that we're both very passionate about. And you know what? We're going to hit a lot of taboos with this topic, and I'm really fired up and excited to have it. I'm going to welcome Sarah in, provided the gram works, because y'all know how it does not like to work for me. So let's see how this goes. Hi, friends. How's everyone's Monday going? Hey. Oh, you're so
Hey,
beautiful. How are you?
how are you? Good, good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm like fired up. I think that video that I posted, and it was Life of Allah. I'm sorry, Allah. I hope his name is actually Allah, who shared it first, and then I reshared it after watching it, and it was so fitting for like this conversation because like holy crap, it was such a powerful video. Honestly, Sarah, it did things to me. And I know you were saying to me before we even got on here, I feel kind of weird having this discussion because like people are probably going to think like what does a white girl, care to talk about these things for? But it is so important that it's talked about. No matter what nationality you are, you're human. And these are human conversations and they need to happen. Um that's my spiel. How are you, Sarah?
I'm good. I'm good. Just, keeping up with COVID and all that stuff and just like the news. I mean, like not saturated news obviously, but just news in general.
Right.
But yeah, doing well.
Yeah. And that's the problem, right? Is that right now everyone is so fixated on COVID that you almost miss the other news that is happening. And it's so sad because it's still happening despite this worldwide pandemic, this COVID that sees no race, no religion, no culture, attacking everybody. We're still attacking each other on a social level. And I think that's why I was so like happy we decided on this conversation because it's so important.
Yeah, like I think like most of us can say that it was kind of a little late that we were hearing about what was going on in the States with that specific case with Ahmad. Just running, doing his workout, and then fitting a profile that, like basically calling, every African American or every, person um like black person like the same. And it's like it's so alarming that it's still happening in 2020. And I feel like, I come from a family that's very diverse. And I feel like, my husband's been profiled before. My family has been profiled before. And like, when does it end? Like I've never had to deal with profiling. And so, whenever I started like, dating Shadi and everything, I started seeing like things pop up here and there. And I was just like, this is real. Like this is actually here, even in Canada. Like we can't ignore the fact that it happens here in our neck of the woods too. Like it's a big deal in the States and it's very prevalent in the States, but not as much here. But it still happens, and like I have a lot of like friends with different ethnic backgrounds, and I respect each culture. And to hear some people like not respecting certain cultures and certain aspects of their life, like I'm just like, why? We're living in an age right now where we should be embracing everybody, should be loving and unifying each other, so
And this is where it gets really complicated and deep and hard is that despite all of that outward discrimination and animosity, cross-cultured animosity, we have it within each culture, within each community against each other. And it's like, how do you break down this level of hierarchy? Like if when my husband and I were going to Vegas, and I was telling you about this, I said, we went to Vegas. My name is Tara Maroof. Nobody knows what the hell I am, but he's Omar Mankel with a beard, you know?
yeah.
So he took his belt off. He took the lighter out of his pocket. He took his shoes off. He walked through and he didn't beep. And they automatically said, go to the side, sir. Whereas I walked through, I beeped, I had a package of caffeine pills in a little baggie with a bobby pin going through them that could have friggin' been God knows what. And I'm telling you all, it was just caffeine pills. But I'm just saying, it could have been anything.
Of course.
I beeped walking through, but it was fine. They didn't say anything to me. Yet my husband was rushed to the side and getting patted down and his hand, you know. And it's like, okay, so we have to deal with that. But then we get back to Canada and you're telling your community and your community is going like, well, but you're not, you went to Vegas. What is Vegas? Are you even practicing enough to go to Vegas, you know, religiously enough to,
Oh,
like, so many different levels of that, that I want to call it hate almost, that you get. Where does it end? You know, how many levels?
it's judgment. And I think people miss the fact that like we need to stop judging each other. Like it isn't our responsibility to judge one another. And I've dealt with being judgmental, I think almost my whole life. Like I was taught to kind of like point fingers and say what you're doing is not good enough and you should be doing it this way. And then I started like thinking like, but what way is really a right way? You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people have the misconception that like, okay, if you go to this place, like you're on it, like Vegas, you know, you're automatically, they automatically assume you're going to go and do all sinful things. But there's shows there. There's like a lot of different things you could do there. And it's not just based on like gambling and like all that stuff. There's a lot of fun things to it. So when people automatically think that you're going to go there and party and like do all this stuff, that's not it at all. Like it's just a different city to see. We have the whole world at like, you know, not right now because we can't fly anywhere, but typically we can go and visit like any city, any country and like enjoy everything. So why be like, you know, judgmental on like where you choose to vacation? Like that to me is like, and you know, it's not something that should be happening either.
It's not, but it's so frustrating to know that, you know, you're not just being profiled by the people who are falling into the media propaganda. You're also being profiled by the people within your community. So where do you catch a break?
Yeah, like for me, okay, so my story with racial profiling with my husband, we were driving over to see my sister in the States, and we spent like a day there, literally just like a full day there, and came back that same night. And when we were coming back, this border officer had saw Shadi El Sweetie, and his face is a beard too, so like same situation as your husband. And then he looks at me and he's like, "Ma'am, are you okay?" I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I'm totally fine. He's like, okay, I'm just checking. And then like started asking my like Shadi so many questions. Like, you know, where are you from? When was the last place you visited? I see you visited Syria. Like, what were you doing there? And like all this stuff. And I'm just like, this is insane. Like, what are you trying to assume here? You know what I mean? Like he's a Canadian citizen. He goes and like travels the world like if he wants to. So why question him on what he's doing? You know, it's those types of situations that puts it into like puts things into perspective for me because I've grown up kind of not dealing with these kind of things. And then when I got into a relationship where you know he was in a like a different ethnic background, I started seeing different things, you know. And then with my family I started seeing different things, and it's just so crazy how this still happens.
It is. It's wild. And it's actually like, I've talked about it with friends, and actually, Ali, Lucky Lush, a lot of people know him as, was on the show not long ago, and he was saying, you know, he had to sit there and defend the fact that he was wearing gold to his
uh
community.
yeah, I
And
saw that.
he was trying to explain, like, why, guys, why, when the media is vilifying us, that do we have to then explain ourselves to each other? Let's just accept each other and fight back against, you know, this
The
whole
bigger picture.
bigger picture. And that's the hard part. And it's like, yeah, it is impactful for Sarah, you know, who seemingly looks white and no one can tell her ethnicity, to come on here and say, I think it was wrong for that black guy in the States, God rest his soul, to get murdered.
Yeah, like it's just nuts. And that it's not the only like case like that. This happens like all the time. All the time. And I like I was told in Brooklyn, you know, like that there's people like being like left in the dark, like because they're a different ethnic background, whether they're brown, they're black, they're Asian, like, and Asians, like my heart goes out to them too. Like, you know, they're being targeted right now. And
Yeah,
seriously, like there's so much racism going on there too because of this whole COVID thing. And it's just like,
what
what is going on? Where's the love? Like where's the compassion? Like I just don't get where that's all going.
and it was funny. I was talking to Hassan Jama about it, and he was like, it's one thing to be black in the States. It's another thing to be black and Muslim in
Hmm.
the, and not just black Muslim in the States, but be black Muslim and the size that he is. He's like, man, like people just look at me and assumptions are rolling. And you think about that, and it's like how sad that is that we have to, we can't control how we were born, how we were raised, what animosity there is around our cultures. All we can do is say, try to be the difference, show a different side, say we are not like that, and hope that people accept you. But how do you get that acceptance? I see Angela here, and Angela, I mean, defied many odds with marrying outside of her culture. And I know Adib was on the other day, and he cracked his jokes about how his dad said, marry anybody you want, but as long as they're not black, and ha ha ha, we laughed about it, and he was joking. But the unfortunate side of it is that these things are are real. These conversations are real, and these comments are actually in some places being said. And it's not laughable at that point,
No,
right?
it's not. And you know what? It's nothing to like, I think the people who are smarter, the people who want to do better, like they'll teach their kids. Like right now, I have to sit down and like, you know, I have like I'm not gonna lie, I have like different colored toys here, you know, like I have a black Barbie doll, I have a black Sour Patch Kids, you know, like I just have different things to make it normal for her to know like she like that's beautiful too, you know, whether whatever color you are, brown, like my, you know, it's beautiful to see that like she kisses, you know, these toys and like all this stuff and says like, oh, so beautiful, so pretty. And it just makes me know that I'm doing my part as a parent, that I'm teaching her that diversity is a beautiful thing, like that cultural is a beautiful thing, you know, to embrace backgrounds, to embrace every background, you know.
Exactly. And Ava's saying it's also very important to raise our children to be accepting of all people. And that's exactly what you're saying. And the thing is like, it's so true. I actually bought a book for the kids that says, we all look different, but we are all the same. And in it, it talks about how blood is red, your heart, all our hearts beat the same. Like, it's such a beautiful, beautiful book. And I'll try to take a picture of it and share it with everybody afterwards, because it's so important to teach that to the kids, despite our differences. I'm cross cultured, as you want to call me. My mom is Lebanese and my dad is Kurdish, and throughout history, Kurds and Lebs technically don't get along. And I've had to deal with my own fair share of where do I fit in because of that unfortunate aspect. But the sad reality is that we don't think that way. We have a more level-headed way of thinking.
Right.
And there are people out there that don't. And how do you erase that mentality? I don't know necessarily if you can, but what I do know is you can try to encourage and promote more unity in other manners.
I
And
think that's what's important is I think
exactly.
start stepping up and having like using their platform and raising their voices regardless of, you know, what color you are. I think like everybody that believes it has a strong stand in unity, like I think they should use their platform for the better. And I think, you know, just you can't 100% erase. There's going to be hate, there's going to be, you know, disagreements, there's going to be judgment from all different kinds of people. But I think like if majority of people realize like how important it is to raise your kids, to change things and have a better life with love instead of hate. Like hate never conquered anything, love has conquered stuff. So it's just for me, I think this is where we need to do our jobs as parents and as teachers and as political, you know, people, to just spread love. like that's it, you know? That's really all it takes. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I remember we don't talk about race in our home because to me, a human is a human, a life is a life. It doesn't matter what color you are, what you believe in. We are all one. That's what I believe, and that's what I try to raise my kids to believe. But it wasn't until my daughter started going to school that those differences became more apparent to her because not everybody is raised that way. And I remember one day she came home and she looked at me and she said, and my kids are very fair, they get that from their husband. And she looked at me and she goes, when I'm a mommy, am I going to be brown like you? And I was like, I've never experienced racism from a child before, but goddamn, my kid's giving it to me. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she goes, well, me, Daddy, and Zaino are the white family, but you're not part of our family because you're different. And I'm like, whoa, little kid, like, sit down, let's have this conversation. And it wasn't until I heard it from a child's mouth that it opened my eyes, because I was like, wow, where are you hearing this from? Where are you learning it from? And she said, well, so and so said on the playground this. And that was heartbreaking to know that, for the longest time, she knew no different until she went to school and heard different. And that's where it becomes challenging, is that not everybody is raising their children with that, blanket over their eyes to color and just love. Unfortunately, people are raising their kids, and that is where our kids will find those differences.
Yeah.
That's where it becomes challenging.
Like that's why I went back to saying like that's always going to be like people who hate. Like that's just what it is. But I'm hoping that the more that people turn to like love and like accepting cultures, like I feel like the more people use forms for the better, that's when people will be like, maybe I should second guess how I say things and how I approach things. And then if someone calls someone out, like, hey, dude, you're being racist, what are you doing? Then I feel like maybe they'll start thinking about it twice. And if not, you know what? Just so like do your thing. But I'm not going to tolerate that. And nobody around me is going to say things that, or spread it because of certain races. Just that's how I've always been, and I continue to do that. And I just block out like any kind of remarks that hurtful.
Well, and I love that and I respect that. I'm very much the same way, where it's like, it's mind-boggling when you've never been that way, to suddenly hearing it, you're like, but I thought we were all Canadian. You know what I mean? Like, I thought, like, I'm not trying to disregard the differences, because I think that the differences in cultures and races and religions is what makes Canada beautiful. But at the end of the day, I feel like we should all just be Canadian and be allowed to be however we want to be. We don't all have to think the same, look the same, dress the same, act the same. But the beauty is that we're all human, right? And I don't want to take away, I hate using the term every life matters, because I feel like it takes away from the impact of what hashtag Black Lives Matter means. But in essence, every life does matter. Every single life, no matter the color, no matter the race, no matter the religion, and every ethnicity matters. And it is important for us all in moments like this, when people are being abused and are being targeted, to speak up on these issues, because it takes away from their lives mattering when we're silent.
Right. And I feel like maybe, I don't know, maybe if like a white person is racist and is watching this video, like it's not cool, like it's not something you should be proud of. You like nobody should be painted like in different, like in all the same brush. Like you can't do that. Like
Right.
try to find it in your heart, and that's what I try to do. My best try to do. Unless someone's an asshole, then I'll be an asshole.
It's so true. It's wild. It's wild to me to think that in 2020 that mentality still exists, right? And I mean, have you ever been, I mean, I know Shadi's Lebanese, you're not. Have you ever been worried that your daughter will have to grow up dealing with any of that? Oh, and I see Ava just asked the exact same question. Um,
I mean, okay, so like I've never thought about it, to be honest with you. And I don't know if that's because I feel like I'm teaching her to be very accepting and very loving, that I feel like maybe everyone is going to be like that, and maybe that's me being in like some sort of a bubble. But I mean, it has crossed my mind, but do I take deep thought into it? No. And I don't know if that's maybe because, like we live in a very small town, and I don't know if like kids are going to be brutal and mean here. And I'm hoping by the time that she's of like, of age to go to school and like in like a grade hard like bullying kids, like I hope that parents will smarten up by then and teach their kids right from right, you
yeah,
know oh sorry, right from wrong. But like I don't worry too much. I just worry mostly about how she's going to treat somebody, and I'm hoping that parents will teach their kids to not treat someone with disrespect and racism.
I agree. And I feel like that's a lot of my hope too. Um, and that's all you can do, right? Is you can only raise your children to the best of your ability, but you can't really control how other people raise their kids. And we were grown up regardless of hearing whatever, we always respected everybody the best we could. Every culture, you're accepting, you embrace them, you learn about them, you want to learn about them. um, I found personally, I mean, after 9/11, my world was rocked,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's when I started noticing um, people treating me differently and acting differently towards me. And I couldn't fully comprehend because I didn't understand the magnitude of the situation or why. I was still very young. But at the same time, too, it's like, yeah, things changed for me a little bit after that. And it's very sad and unfortunate, but things changed for everybody. So although I try to empathize with the people who don't understand, I also want to make it a point to make them understand that you can't paint everybody with the same brush, you know?
And like, I won't sit here and lie. Say like my family has never said racist remarks. Like I remember when I started dating Shadi, like, and I said he was Lebanese. Like, first question was like, "Is he treating her?" You know what I mean? And it's like that stigma, like that was. And I'm just like, is this seriously coming out of your mouth? Like appalled, and I was like, the fact that you said that is like racist. I'm running out of this house. Like I was so upset, and I think just with me being in a relationship with him, my sister being in a black guy, I think like that over the years have kind of like took their minds shifted on that aspect, like not being so judgmental and thinking every Lebanese guy is the same, or every black person is the same. Like I think that they have shifted so people can change. You know what I mean? Like people can seriously change if they want to, and like things haven't got like come out of their mouth in years. If anything, like it's actually the opposite now, where they're like, I can't believe this is still happening. Like, what's going on? Because I told them about the whole Ahmed story in the States. So it's just like, come
And
on.
I have to ask, and this is a very personal question. So, have you ever felt like because of the way they initially felt, if there ever was, and I'm not saying there ever is or would be, but if there ever was a situation where you wanted to turn to them, do you think that you would have been fearful to do so because it would have perpetuated their thought that they initially had?
No. So like, are you saying like, would I?
Like, if you were ever in a situation, say, where you and Shadi wanted to, like, I'm not saying this is, hypothetically, if you ever wanted to leave your husband, or when you guys were just dating, if you ever broke up and you knew that you would eventually get back together, it was just like a whatever breakup, were you ever fearful to say to them like, oh yeah, we broke up, but we'll probably get back together, we just had an argument, because you didn't want them to be like, oh well, it's because of this, we told you this was gonna happen?
No, and like I don't like if that ever did happen, I don't think I'm afraid to talk about us breaking up. I think what I would be afraid more is failing in a relationship. You know what I mean? Like what was wrong that I couldn't make it work or whatever, which thank God it wasn't ever like that. But you know, I don't think I'd ever like not tell them
Right.
about them. Like I'm not sure if they would have ever said I think so. Because when they finally met him, they like instantly fell in love. Like, literally, like first night, they're like, "This guy is like gold." I told you, like I told you, it doesn't take much. That's why he won it over, you know.
No, it's true. And that's the thing too, is I think that like we build up these ideas about each other. Oh, am I cutting out? Sorry. We build up these ideas about, can you hear that?
No.
Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry. We build ideas about each other in our minds, and then what ends up happening is that, once you actually meet the person and you get to talk to them, you realize they're just like anybody else. They're just like you, their daughter or whatever. And it's so unfortunate that the first thing we see is race, is culture rather than person. Um, and that's another thing, like how do you end that, how do you end those first sight stigmas to allow each other to meet on a different level?
Yeah, I don't know how you can end that stigma. I think it takes a lot of practice with like loving yourself first. And then I think, you know, then you can learn to really accept people. And I think like that's something that a lot of people struggle with is loving themselves. And I think that's, and no matter the race or the background, no matter the religious aspect, I feel like a lot of people who internally struggle with, you know, self-hate or just not loving themselves enough just judge and like quick to just impulse act on things that they should like really think twice about, you know?
It's so true, so unfortunate and sad. But I also think, and I read it in one of the comments earlier, it is generational. And I think that the more that our generation sort of breaks that down, has, that secondary assimilation where we're marrying cross culture, we're marrying cross religion, we are breaking it down for our kids to just make people become just people, and that it's a beautiful thing to have all cultures within yourself, not just one. I see a comment, more positive exposure. People generally fear what they don't know. Exposing people to new cultures with an open mind. What you're doing is showing Lily diversity with adults. Yeah, and it's very true. That's very, very true. You are showing her diversity. And it is something that I think as mothers we all need to do, is whether or not you're married to someone in the same culture or married to somebody in the same religion or whatever it is, we need to expose our kids to everything, so that it gives them choices to identify with their own personal beliefs, because they are their own people adapting, and we can only sway them to a certain extent. And then also to give them the knowledge to know that people at the end of the day are just people. And it's
Learn
that's
COVID, they didn't like it didn't discriminate, you know, it affected people of all cultures, all ethnic backgrounds, all ages, like clearly did not discriminate. So I think like people just really need to realize we are one unit and we just need to like love on each other more.
exactly. And I think it starts at home. And when I say at home, I don't just mean, in our literal houses, but in our communities. And we have to accept the differences in our communities and to understand that not all of us are going to be maybe like-minded, but we are like in the sense that we are human, and we can find that common ground between each other so that we can unite as one to just be better in general, right?
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild. Sarah, now that you've sort of gotten back home and you've gotten to see your daughter again, how was that whole meetup?
It was honestly bliss. It's like I I don't know if it's because she spent so much time apart, but literally like the girl is attached to me, like my best friend, literally. Like puts on my lipstick, does my hair into Elsa hair, like literally my best friend. So honestly, it's been such a blessing having her back and my husband too. Miss them both so much that they're both here. And I'm glad things are like, looking better. People are less fearful and going outside and doing more things, seeing their families again, which is seriously helping like mental health and all that stuff. So I'm really happy about that. But yeah, all to say is I'm happy she's home.
I can. Were you what are your thoughts now? I know we were kind of when we first talked, sort of when things first went down. Have your thoughts on the situation changed at all? Or are you still kind of viewing it the same way?
Like so much info out there that you don't even know what's true for. I guess like I'm still viewing it the same. Like whatever I feel in my heart is the truth, and whatever I feel like decisions I make, buddy, or to do certain things, to go into certain like if I feel right doing it, then I'm gonna do it. Um, but I'm just glad that people are seeing like the good side, like making things into positive about this whole. So that's really making me happy. I mean, that's not to disregard, having a tough time. Like, I seriously pray for tough situations and dealing with tough scenarios, but I'm happy that overall, like, people are starting to feel better.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the weather's getting better. They're slowly starting to open back up. There's a lot to look forward to. Um, Again, yeah, there's so much information out there, and like you said, I'm in the middle of a lot of things. I don't know where my head is at. It's sort of all over the place. It's a weird, it's a weird time. I don't think any of us expected this. Um, but the only thing I can hope for is that we can sort of stop the inbreed of hate and animosity between each other within our homes. We can unite as one. I know how cliche that sounds and how like optimistic it makes me sound, and a lot of people don't like to hear optimism.
We need to hear that from more people, instead of like, causing division. I think we need to talk about you. I think like we need like those Michael Jackson to come back and keep us in peace. Like,
Yes.
I think, and I bring up Michael Jackson because I heard his music today, and I was just like, what a time back then to like hear his songs and just like feeling good about how the world was, like still racism was a thing then, but it was just the way he sang and spoke about like peace and unity. It's just beautiful. And I just think that that would come back.
Of course. And I mean, I even think about, and it pains me to have to say this, but I remember when I had my kids, naming them, simply naming them, was a very heavily thought out decision because I didn't want, and it makes me sad in a way, but I didn't want them to be identified by their name in any way. I wanted to sort of leave whatever it is about them a mystery until somebody asked, but it's almost shameful to have say that live because why should I have to think that way? But unfortunately, I felt like I did, and that's why I sort of named them the way that I did, right? It's crazy to think that, again, now in 2020, despite those Michael Jackson songs and despite the way that we grew up learning to love each other and one another, we have to think like that. So I really hope it changes. I really, really do.
I do.
But I love that we were able to have this chat because I think that it's really important. And again, I think that it's important that, two women who aren't Black can say, hey, wait a minute, that situation was so wrong. Black Lives Matter. That is not okay. We do not stand for that. We're in Canada. We don't support it out here. And, maybe this is our way of protesting that situation.
And that goes for any ethnic background too.
Yeah.
different races and cultures here. So I stand by all different types of people, and I'll fight for them, and use my platform for whatever I need to get awareness. And I think that's the best I could do. If I have to protest, I'll protest with them. Like I'm not, I'm not gonna hold back and not do that either, right? So yeah.
Well, and it's fearless, Sarah, because I think that, and I've heard it from a few people before who said, like, I don't agree with that, but I'm afraid to say that I don't agree with that because I'm afraid that people won't accept that I'm looking the way that I do, say that I don't agree with it. But the sad reality is that that mentality doesn't change anything. What changes things is that when people who look all different ways stand up and say, this is wrong, right? And that's the only thing that's going to, I think, unite us. But thank you so much, Sarah. That was awesome. Honestly,
Ew.
I'm so happy that we could have that chat. I know I was very like fired up and passionate about it, so thank you for letting me just ramble on at times.
Oh, it's all good. This is what Oh Shit Live is for.
Oh shit live, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Take care, stay safe, keep your family.
Thank you. Have a good night, girl.
Too. Bye.
Bye.
Guys, that was awesome. I'm so happy that she joined me for that conversation. She is a beautiful, beautiful woman. If you don't know her on Instagram, it is Happily Homemade. And she does custom kits of all sorts. She does printing and everything like that. Follow her on Instagram at Happily Homemade. That's Sarah Zadorek. She is local to us. And tomorrow I have Yola joining me for a very heartfelt conversation where she'll be opening up a little bit about her truth. And I'm so excited to hear it. I know I will be sharing a little bit of mine as well tomorrow. It will be a hard conversation. I'm not gonna lie. It'll be hard for some people to hear. It'll be hard for us to have, but we're both adamant on saying what we have to say about it. So I'm excited to chat with her tomorrow. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. I love you. We'll see you tomorrow night. Oh shit.